Hey guys, I'm Dani Passos, Developer Relations at Hashnode, and I'm excited to welcome you guys to our workshop today. We are here to gear up for the One Password Hackathon on Hashnode. Over the month of June, you'll have the opportunity to build secure and powerful apps using the One Password developer tools and Passage. And we have super exciting prizes up for grabs, starting with the Innovation Award. Its winner will receive a grand prize of $5,000, and we have four runners-up with where each one of them will take home $1,000. And also, we have a super exciting People's Choice Award of $1,000 waiting to be claimed. And today we have put an exciting workshop agenda to get you ready for the hackathon. Joining me today are Jason, Amanda, Eddie, Ricky, and Mac, who will be guiding us through these topics. And I'll pass the mic to Jason so we can kick things off and get ready for the hackathon.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hey, Danny, just so you know, Hori is having some backstage or some restream issues. If we could maybe shift over to that. Yeah, we are super excited. 1Password has been gearing up for this hackathon. We're so excited to see what everyone can build. We have three products that we have unveiled for hacking on. The first is Passage, which is going to be, you'll see it's a really great and easy way to integrate web authentication into your service or app. We have shell plugins, which is the ability to log into a CLI using just your finger or other biometrics. And then third is going to be our CLI, which is the foundation for some really cool ability to automate processes, build into IDs that you haven't yet before. And we're just real excited. I mean, everyone from our product team to our engineers to our marketers, even to our C-level leadership, they're just so excited that we are here. We kicked off on the first, but this event is our first kind of in-person event to like kick everyone off. So that's what we wanted to do. Today, we are going to give you kind of the building blocks of how to get started. And then also on the 23rd of June, it's also in the announcements on the blog post, we're going to have a community office hour. So we're hoping that between now and then, you have the opportunity to go and kind of kick the tires and get started. And if you have any questions, we are live on the 23rd. And also we're available in the Hashnode Discord and also our developer Slack as well. So there are lots of opportunities to connect with us. So we are super excited. So with that, I will turn it over to Ricky, who's going to go first. He's on Ricky and Mac on the Passage side. They're going to show us kind of the basics of the tool and then how to get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason and Danny. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so let's pray that the live demo gods are kind to us. Awesome. All right. So hey everyone, my name is Ricky Padilla. I'm on the Passage team here at 1Password. And today we'll just be doing a super simple live demo. So first off, what is Passage? Passage is a robust solution for passkey authentication and user identity management. And if you're not familiar with passkeys, passkeys are a safer and easier alternative to passwords. So with passkeys, your users can sign into apps and websites with a biometric sensor, think like Face ID, Touch ID, those kinds of technologies. And the hope is that it really frees your users from needing to remember or manage a password. So there's kind of two stages to this demo. The first stage is just setting up a Passage account. And then the second stage is adding Passage to an existing web application. So I'll go ahead and start here. So to get started with Passage, you can just simply go to passage.1password.com. And we're just going to go from start to finish setting up the account. So I'm going to click Try Passage for free, register a new account. Hit continue. And this is us kind of dog fooding our own product. So to sign up for a Passage account, you actually use the Passage technology to get started. So this interface that you see here, you'll see again later in the demo when we incorporate Passage into our own application. So we'll go ahead and hit register with a passkey. And I'm just going to touch the Touch ID sensor on my MacBook. And that's it. We now have a Passage account and are here in our Passage console. And I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new application. We're going to go fully passwordless. I'll hit continue. And the name of my app is called PokeKeys. So it's a super simple application where I'm going to use Passage to get me passkey authentication, to go to a dashboard page where I can search for Pokemon and add them to a private list. And since we're going to be in development mode, I'm just going to use localhost. And then the redirect URL is where users will be redirected after a successful authentication event. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a suggestion of dashboard. Our app today will be a React app. And I click create new app. And here we go. We're all set up with our Passage application. So we're going to switch from here over to our example application. And real quick, just here in the code, you'll see we just have two separate routes or two separate pages that this application has. One is just like the home screen, which is where we're going to add our Passage authentication. And then we have our dashboard, which is where you'll be able to search for Pokemon and add them to a list. And this page will be protected. You'll need to be authenticated to be able to access it. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of show you what it looks like before adding Passage. I was trying to add it to. Oh, I have an import here. All right, so let's go ahead and skip that part and we'll just go ahead and add it because apparently I'm already importing it somewhere. So apologize for that. All right, so we're going to go over to our Passage docs, which you can find easily at docs.passage.id. I need to import or add Passage identity, Passage elements as a dependency. So we'll go ahead and do that here. All right. And then let's go ahead and try this again. All right, here we go. So as you'll see, we just have an empty rectangle here where we are going to drop in our Passage authentication element. And the authentication element is a pre-built UI that handles all the edge cases, handles all the UI. So you can simply drop in a component. So here's where we have this home component is this blank rectangle here. And we're going to go ahead and add the Passage element. So if I go back to our React documentation, I'm just going to copy and paste this import statement, add to the top of our file. And then this Passage auth is the authentication element that we're going to replace this empty div with. I'll need to add this React app Passage app ID to our environment variables. And we'll go back to our dashboard and copy this app ID, paste it here. All right, that should be good. So now if we go back to our PokeKeys app and refresh, invalid app ID. Oh, I got to restart. All right. Let's try this. All right. So here we are. This is the Passage element, as you can see by this message down here that says powered by Passage. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the whole process of adding a new user, creating a new user. Hit continue. And you'll see I'm given this kind of educational piece about what a passkey is. I'm going to go ahead and click register with passkey. Scan my fingerprint again. All right, and we now have an account. As you might recall, this page is protected. We haven't set up our backend yet, so we can't see this page. So we'll dive into that in a second, but first, I'm going to come back here to the Passage console. And here you'll see the user that we just created. So super, super simple to get users registered and logged in with Passage. All right, we're going to jump over to our backend code here. So this is all I have right now, super simple Express application on the backend. And for the sake of time, I'm going to, well, let's do the install a dependency first, and then I have some kind of boilerplate code that I'll copy and paste. So we're going to install Passage node. Let me come over to this other window to copy and paste on this boilerplate. So we'll import Passage node. And then we'll need to create an instance of Passage. And I have a couple of routes for this simple application. All right, so the part that we'll walk through is kind of up here on line 23. So I just create a new instance of Passage. And then I create a Passage auth middleware, which will make it just super easy to authenticate these different endpoints. But before we get there, let's go ahead and add our environment variables to our backend code. We'll use the same app ID. And then we'll need to generate an API key for our Express app, which is super simple. So again, we'll go back to the console. In the left sidebar, there's the settings button, and then underneath that, API keys. We'll create API key here. Copy that over. All right, so we should be good to go. And our PokeKeys front-end app on the dashboard page, you can see here there's this warning that says you are not logged in. You have to log in to continue. So this page is hitting this auth endpoint to make sure that the user is authenticated before showing any content. And real quick, I can show you that. But I just have this custom use auth status hook that I wrote where it calls this auth endpoint to make sure that we're authenticated. So let's go ahead and get things up and running again. All right, so our server's running. Let's refresh the page. And now you can see we are logged in. And I can add Pokemon to my list. And that's it. That's how easy it is to add Passage to your app.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for sharing. Now I'll bring on stage Horia. Hey, Horia.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome on
Awesome.
stage, and I'll pass the mic to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me quickly share my screen. All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Horia. I've been a developer with 1Password for around 2 years now. I'm based in the Netherlands, so you'll forgive me for a few bloopers. This is a bit past the end of my workday. I'm a member of the terminal integrations team, working mostly with the CLI and shell plugins. Now, before diving into how to integrate with the 1Password CLI, let's talk a bit. Oh, you can't see my screen. All right. Let me quickly address that. Are you able to see my screen now? Are you able to see my screen now? All right. Is it possible that we pass it on to Amanda while I'm debugging this issue? Oh, beautiful. That's my screen. Cool. Yeah, as I was telling you before, diving into how to integrate with 1Password CLI, we'll talk a bit about why to integrate with the 1Password CLI. Well, I'm going to give you the most common scenario, and that is you wanting to build an application. This is what we're doing here this month. We're trying to bring 1Password closer to developers, and you want to integrate it with 1Password. Now, there doesn't seem to be any straightforward API that you would be able to call from your application to talk to 1Password. And this is where the 1Password CLI comes in to facilitate the communication between these two. Now, let's have a look into how these components actually interact with one another. And I'm going to start with how your app can talk to 1Password. And this can happen in a couple of ways. First of all, you could choose to call the CLI directly from your code, as you'll see in a couple of minutes. That is done by usually leveraging a library that allows for executing external commands. You could opt for using an SDK such as the JavaScript SDK or the Python SDK, which was contributed by the community. Or another option would be to build an SDK yourself, which would be absolutely awesome. And I very much encourage you to go ahead and do that. Now let's have a look at the other link. How does the CLI talk to 1Password, or rather, how do you authenticate the CLI when it needs to reach to 1Password? And this once again depends on the purpose of your application. If you're building an application for the local use case, you will want to delegate this entire session management shebang to the 1Password app. We'll see that in a second. And you will be able to very swiftly authorize with your fingerprint. And if you want to target your application for remote environments where you don't have the 1Password app, where you don't have a fingerprint reader, then you can use service accounts. Service accounts being programmatic users, so to call them, with access to limited resources that allow you to access these resources from 1Password in this environment through the 1Password CLI. Now, what can the 1Password CLI do? It can do a lot of stuff, but I'm going to show you some use cases for item and vault management, that is reading, creating, editing items from your 1Password account. Secret provisioning, that's providing a credential in a secure way to an application such that there is no sensitive data left on disk. And with that in mind, I think we can dive into installing the 1Password CLI. How do you go about that? You can opt for Homebrew on macOS for the most popular package managers, for Linux, for Docker image if you want to leverage containerization. But what I'm going to show you now is how to install it from the official release website. And I believe you once again don't see my screen, so bear with me while I'm sharing again. All right. Wrong screen. Yeah, I'm sorry for that. And we're back. Awesome. So this is the official 1Password CLI release website. When you land here, you're going to see two types of builds. You're going to see the stable builds and the beta builds. The beta builds, the only difference being that they also contain some experimental features that are not yet deemed stable, and they require some more user validation before they can land under a backwards compatibility contract. And you're going to see these beta features in the developer docs being annotated with the beta tag as well. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to download a stable 1Password CLI release. Going to go through this nice wizard, install it on my local machine. Nice. Once I have this done, I want to confirm that it installed correctly. So I'm going to go to my terminal and then type ob version. It is indeed the version that I just installed. And now that I'm sure that the CLI got installed correctly, I am ready to make my first authenticated call. Now, as I mentioned, in a local scenario, you would want your CLI to be connected to 1Password 8 to leverage the session delegation that I was telling you about. And for that, you'd like to go under settings in 1Password 8, under developer, and make sure that this checkbox here is indeed checked. Now, going back to the terminal, I am ready to make my first authenticated call, and let's do the simplest thing that one can think of. Let's retrieve an item. I'm going to retrieve the hashnode item from the test vault. And as I was telling you about, I'm prompted to authorize this call. This is an error that I get because of my my local OP 1Password 8 build, but the authorization should have worked. And now you'll see indeed the item here. Now with these building blocks out of the way, I think we're ready to dive into a few integrations, see how to go about those. And the first integrations that I'm going to show you is a very simple script. What it does is getting an item from 1Password and prompting you for different values for its fields, and then creating a new item to 1Password. I use this script for testing purposes. And as you can see here, it leverages the exact same command that we have typed in the terminal, executing it by the means of the exec package, which is a nice package in the Go standard library, which is able to run external commands. Now I can even show you very quickly how this works. So it's asking me for an item title, a source item title. Let's pick the hashnode item, the test vault, prompting me to authorize. And I want to save it under hashnode 1, once again in test vault. Let's say, hey, there for the 2 nodes. And if I go in my 1Password account, you're going to see that there's a new item here saying, hey there. Well, this application is super nice, but it doesn't really have widespread utility, so to call it. It's very nice for testing, but let's have a look at what more refined integration would look. And for that, we're going to look at the VS Code extension. Now, the VS Code extension, the use case that we had in mind when designing and building that was the use case of projects, as this web app is, the simple web app, which consumes secrets. As you can see here, there is a secret here in plain text in a .m file that's committed to source control, which is not really nice. So what the VS Code extension can help to do, and I should mention that this is built entirely on the top of the 1Password CLI, leveraging the JavaScript SDK that I mentioned a bit earlier. What it helps you do is secure these values in 1Password, providing a very nice interface. So clicking this button, I can choose an item name, such as, let's say, title secret, and the name for the field secret. Once again, ask to authorize. And it replaced this very sensitive value with a secret reference that will get replaced at the runtime with the actual value of the secret. And I can even show you if I go to 1Password, this is here. Now, because this is a web app, I want to commit and push as soon as possible to make sure my app is secure. So I'll do that. My app is secure. If I also save, it may work. And because I work in a very agile fashion, when I push, I want already a new deployment of my app to happen. If we go on GitHub and refresh this, you already see that a pipeline is running. And if we take a look into what's happening in the pipeline, you'll see that, come on, you'll see that this pipeline actually loads secrets directly from my 1Password account and uses this Docker credential that it loads to log in to Docker and then publish after building my image. And I can show you actually the configuration of your workflow to dive a bit into that as well. This workflow is built using the load secrets action, an action that is once again built on top of the 1Password CLI, but with the use case of CI/CD workflows in mind. So as you can see here, the way the CLI authenticates underneath is using a service account token, and these two values will get loaded dynamically in the pipeline. Now, this is pretty much everything that I wanted to show you. I urge you to go and have a look both at the GitHub Action code base and the VS Code extension code base, because they are both open source under the 1Password account. And yeah, I would like to keep this conversation open. So this is by no means a complete how-to guide, and you aren't expected to build full-blown integrations yourself. Please reach out to us. I'd be more than happy to help you on Slack, Discord, or in a pairing session. With that in mind, I'm going to post links to the documentation about all the concepts that I touched on in Discord right after this session. And yeah, I think that's everything for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for sharing this, Horia. This was really, really great. And now I'll bring Amanda on stage. Hey, Amanda.
Good day. Let me go straight to sharing a screen and see how it works. There we go. All right. So what I'm going to be showing a little bit about is our shell plugins. So our shell plugins are on GitHub, and they are available for people to contribute to. So just a little background. Our shell plugins are to enable you to authenticate any CLI with your fingerprint. So we have this nice little demo video down here where you type in AWS command, and then you can see that 1Password is asking you for your fingerprint to authenticate, and then it gives you the output. So what I'm showing today is how to add a new plugin. So as you can see here on our, so it's the 1Password / shell plugins, and then we've got a contribute button. So little extra background, these are all of our currently available CLIs. So the one that I'm going to show today is adding New Relic. So we're going to go to the contribute. So I obviously have the requirements already set up. So I've got 1Password. I have 1Password 8, that's right here. The 1Password CLI, which Horia just demoed. And then I've got Go, Git, and Make. So there's a little bit of extra context in the documentation, but for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of zoom right past that into the actual demo. So this is just an example, the example New Relic command that I'm going to be using. So as you can see, just out of the box, it doesn't work because I didn't run New Relic profile configure. So we're going to hop over to shell plugins, and we're going to run make new plugin. And hope for the best. All right, so the plugin name is New Relic. The platform name is 2 words with some capitals. The executable is also New Relic. It's an API key. And I have a handy kind of example one. So we're just going to do and then just a bunch of capitals and numbers. And then that's it for that bootstrapping. So we're going to open my editor, and you can see we have this new folder, New Relic. Let's give a bit more space there. So the documentation actually gives a little bit of an idea as to the order that we think makes sense to go about editing the files. So we're going to start with plugin.go. So the only thing that we really suggest modifying to start with on this page is make sure that this actually points to the website that you think it does. Next step is the credential definition, which is in API key. So ours is API key, and then I know from my previous research that it's actually New Relic API key. And then the other one, we also need account, which is New Relic account ID. And then field name is going to be just account. So we're just going to name it account there. So I'm not going to, for the sake of time, I'm not going to show all of the extra things that you can do to import a config file, but basically it checks, like you can put in the path to where a usual config file is. And then it will go and scrape it and see if it can find credentials and then offer to import them into 1Password for you. So I'm not going to show that in this case. I just want to see if I can get it to a functioning state. So the test basically kind of checks to make sure that we just give you one test to get started. And then newrelic.go is the last one. So you want to make sure that is actually the name of the executable for the CLI you're using. I'm not going to bother updating the docs URL right now, but you definitely want to make sure that points to the right place. And we're going to go ahead and head over to build it. Just a little note in the documentation. So this is this gives you a few details. So I'm just doing the straight kind of recommended use case, or less recommended, more ideal, like easiest use case of environment variables. There's some details for doing temporary files. So if you can configure it to point to a file, and then you can also extend the provisioner to add other options. So this is the importer that I skipped doing. I decided not to change any of that. And now we're going to do some validation and building. So we're going to run OP. No, we're not running that. We're running make New Relic. Validate. See how it goes. All right, so you can see it just kind of does some standard checks to make sure that we've got everything set that we think we should have set. And then we're going to do make New Relic build. Cross your fingers. All right, so that succeeded. So now we're going to run to OP plugin list. And you can see up at the top, we've got local build, New Relic, and that it requires an API key. So we're going to go ahead and try to initialize it. OP plugin init New Relic. Just reminds you that this isn't part of the official registry, so proceed with caution. I've already saved my New Relic key in 1Password, so I'm going to search in 1Password, and it's in this testing vault. And I'm only going to do it for this terminal session. So now it's just telling me to source the plugins.sh so that it actually sends me to authenticate with 1Password. And then I'm going to do the same New Relic history command and see what happens. So it gave me actual results instead of that error that you were seeing before. And let's just open a new terminal. And oops, we're gonna, there we go. And it's asking me to authenticate to 1Password. And since I didn't save which item I was going to use, it's making sure that I'm picking the one that I want. And there it is again. So I believe that's everything that I was hoping to show today. So I look forward to hearing any questions.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor for any questions that the audience may have. And I'll also pull up Jason over here.
Yes. Thanks, Amanda. That was awesome. Actually, thank you to all our presenters. You guys did a really great job of showing off the values, or sorry, the value adds, and why these tools are impressive, and also how easy it is to get started. So as Danny had said, we have prize categories for every product. So Passage has a category, the CLI has a category, Shell plugins have a category, and then there's some other ones too. So I think one of them, I mean, you just saw Amanda build a Shell plugin in what was that, 8 minutes? One of the categories is most Shell plugins built. So do us a favor, register for the hackathon, download the CLI, get started. There's a really great getting started guide in addition to the resources that were just presented. And then I am getting some questions internally about pricing and that sort of thing. So one cool thing that we've done for this, that 1Password's done for the hackathon, is every participant gets 2 months free of 1Password, and that includes our developer tool set, which is what the hackathon's all about. And then for Passage, there's a free tier that will suffice for your testing and deployment needs. So go ahead and get started. We've made ourselves available. Also, one cool thing we didn't mention, Danny, is for CLI and Shell plugins, if you have an idea or you just get stuck, we do have a pair programming opportunity. So you can team up. Horia is one of them, is one of the engineers that you might get for 20 minutes. So go ahead and sign up for that if you'd like to. Then
That's
one more
awesome.
thing, if you're a student, so we have the 2 months is for Hashnode participants. 1Password just joined the GitHub Student Developer Pack. So if you are a student studying computer science, or actually if you're any student registered as one with GitHub, you can get 1 year free of 1Password. So if you want, you can register for that as well. In addition to, just be sure you sign up for the hackathon so that we can know that you are entering. So I'm not seeing any questions. Is that true, Danny, so far?
Yes, I'm not seeing any questions here from the audience.
I
So
did have a question I wanted to ask the Passage team. So Ricky and Mac, tell us about what would make for an interesting submission. If someone has an idea of how they want to integrate Passage. What would pique your interest as if you're voting on those entries?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think from my perspective, passkeys really shine when you use them cross-device or cross-platform. So Ricky gave a demo example of really quickly implementing Passage from a web perspective, but we also have native iOS and Android SDKs. It'd be really, really cool if someone set up a demo with a mobile app and a web app and watch someone authenticate with a passkey from their mobile device and then on the web. And then we have some integrations with tools like Supabase, where it should be really easy to use these tools, and people love to use them to get apps started really, really quickly. Getting Passage integrated into some of those pieces, those tools that you like to use when you're building fast, would be really great to see, so that more people can easily get set up and running with Passage.
Fantastic. And then Amanda, can we shift over to Shell plugins real quick? Thanks, Mac. We get shift over to Shell plugins. I'm curious to know what requirements are there for getting started, because I think like certain only one language is supported. So touch on that, and then also in the community, where have people gotten kind of hung up a little bit with Shell plugins, and how what are some of the more common fixes?
So right now it's all in Go. So that being said, we've had some contributors that contributed and it was their first ever time touching Go. So don't let that be a blocker. If you've done some programming but never touched Go, don't let that stop you. As far as things that people kind of have gotten hung up on, I would say just kind of I'd say the biggest thing is at the beginning, figuring out what exactly the requirements of the specific CLI you want to add are. how do you authenticate with it? Make sure that you have a good not a great understanding necessarily, but at least an understanding of what it requires in order to do it. And then you can usually launch from there.
Perfect. Awesome. Danny, I think in the absence of any external questions, I think that's a wrap. I think we're good.
Okay. So that brings us to the end of our workshop. I would like to thank you, Jason, Amanda, Eddie, Ricky, and Mac for sharing your insights and valuable knowledge. And I would like to remind our participants that this is just the beginning. The Build with 1Password hackathon waits for you, and we cannot wait to see what the apps and integrations you're going to build. So let's explore, ask questions, share progress in our dedicated Discord and also the 1Password Slack channel. And if you haven't registered yet, now this is the perfect time, especially after this big, insightful session. So don't miss out on your chance to win some amazing, fantastic prizes and create a big impact. Thank you guys for being here with me today. And we look forward to seeing all the submissions. See you guys.